Welcome back, my friends. For this particular observation, let's just say we agree and disagree, shall we? Why is it that no matter where you sit in the professional hierarchy, at the top, at the bottom, or somewhere in the exhausting middle, the feeling is almost always some version of alone? We spend so much of our lives trying to climb, but we rarely talk about the specific kind of isolation that settles in at every single level of the ladder. The person in the corner office isn't looking down at freedom, and the person at the entry-level desk isn't looking up at clarity. I want to look at that gap today. The distance that the structure itself creates between people who are all just trying to survive the same building. We're taught to look at the top as a place of arrival. We see the authority, the salary, the deference, and we assume that reaching that level means reaching a state of clarity. But if you talk to the person in that chair, past the professional shell, you find a different reality. The view from the top isn't freedom, it's a particular kind of isolation. When you're the person who has to make the final call on a budget cut, a restructuring, a direction nobody asked for, you realize your authority is just a different kind of cage. The loss at that level is the loss of the peer. Once you reach a certain point, everyone you interact with either wants something from you or is afraid of what you might decide. You're no longer a person, you're a function. You see faces adjust when you walk into a room. You hear conversations change tone. You're navigating a world where honesty is rare because everyone is performing for your benefit. And you have to perform certainty back at them, because if the person at the top looks worried, the whole building feels it. So you sit in the nicest office in the building, and you've never felt more alone. The success you work toward has effectively removed you from the human loop. You're a figurehead, a signature, a target for everyone's frustration. And underneath all of it, you're still the same person who was at the bottom of the ladder years ago, wondering if anyone actually knows who you are behind the desk. At the other end of the building, the experience is entirely different. At the bottom of the ladder, the struggle isn't isolation, it's invisibility. You're the raw material of the company. You're the one doing the tasks that make the numbers move, but you feel like a flicker in the very system you're keeping alive. Decisions get made at the top, and you feel every consequence of them in your daily work, but you have no voice in the process. You're being moved around like a piece on a board by people who genuinely don't know your name. This creates a feeling of total disposability. You know that if you left tomorrow, your job would be posted before your desk was cleared. Your value is purely functional. You're not being paid for your thinking or your humanity. You're being paid for your compliance. And the constant need to prove your worth to a system that isn't even looking at you is its own particular grind. You watch the people in the corner offices with a mixture of envy and something harder to name. You think, if they only knew how broken the tools actually are, if they only saw what it costs to do this every day. But they don't want to see it. They want the results, not the reality. So you stay in your corner, doing the work, feeling the slow erosion of your own sense of self in a system that only values what it can measure. Then there is the middle, the place of the next rung, where the pressure is constant and the position is unstable. We're told that the solution to every level of unhappiness at work is to move up. Invisible at the bottom, get promoted. Overwhelmed in the middle, aim higher. But what we rarely acknowledge is the fear of that next step. We've watched what the promotion did to the person who took it before us. We've seen them lose something, their ease, their availability, their connection to the people around them. We've watched the professional shell harden until they became someone we don't fully recognize, and so we hesitate. because we're starting to see that every step up the ladder is a trade. You trade your honesty for authority, your time for a title. You look at the open position and you wonder, is the extra money worth the person I'll have to become to earn it? That's not a comfortable question to sit with. One part of you wants the security and the status. The other part wants to stay human. This creates a kind of stagnation that the world reads as a lack of ambition. You stay where you are, not because you aren't capable, but because you understand the cost. And the world doesn't reward awareness. It rewards movement. So you're stuck being judged for not wanting something that you've simply seen too clearly to want without reservation. One of the most exhausting things about the hierarchy is the way it makes people talk past each other. The language of the top and the language of the bottom are two different dialects. At the top, people talk about synergy, growth, strategic alignment. At the bottom, people talk about broken software, unmanageable workloads, and not having enough time to eat lunch. These two groups can be in the same meeting, looking at the same report, and seeing two completely different realities. The structure is built to prevent the top from feeling the pain of the bottom, and it's built to prevent the bottom from seeing the vulnerability at the top. You communicate through filters, formal reports, curated presentations, numbers stripped of their human context. You've turned interaction between people into an exchange of managed information. You sit in a meeting listening to a senior leader use jargon to explain why your department is being restructured, and you realize they aren't speaking to you. They're speaking to the role you occupy. They don't see the person, they see the function. And the higher you climb, the more jargon you need to use to hide the fact that you're also uncertain. The lower you are, the more you have to pretend you understand the jargon just to be seen as a team player. Everyone is performing. Nobody is actually talking. Here's the thing that connects all of it, regardless of which chair you're sitting in. Whether you're the one staring at a plummeting number in the corner office, or the one staring at a mountain of work at the base of the building, the internal experience is remarkably similar. We're all afraid of being found out. We're all worried we're not quite enough for the role we've been given. We're all tired of the performance. The hierarchy is just an elaborate set of costumes we've agreed to wear so the world feels organized. And underneath every title, the impressive ones and the unremarkable ones, there's a person who still has the same fears they had before they got the job. The anxiety doesn't disappear at the top. The sense of invisibility doesn't fully dissolve as you climb. You just get a different version of the same problem, a different kind of lonely, a different flavor of not being seen. The distance between chairs is real, but it's not a distance in worth. It's a distance the structure created and then told everyone was natural. If you felt something in this, whether you're at the top running on fumes, at the bottom running on invisible effort, or somewhere in the middle wondering what you're trading yourself for, that feeling has always been valid. You're not failing at your career because you feel the weight of it. You're just finally paying attention to what the weight actually is. The ladder isn't taking you somewhere better. It's just changing the kind of difficult you have to deal with. And knowing that, really knowing it, is not nothing. Just imagine, if you could take away your title, your salary, and your professional reputation for one day, what would be left of the person sitting at your desk? Do they still recognize you?